Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real 1% Podcast, where we talk to everybody in the military, no matter what force, what service you served in. We talk about the transition. We talk about the ups, the downs, the pitfalls, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. So without further ado, today's special guest is named Manuel Gomez, and he is, man, dude, I talked to him for like the last 10 minutes, and he's like a wealth full of knowledge. I just want to let y'all know that. But he was a U.S. Navy sailor who served honorably from 2005 to 2011. He was initially a quartermaster, but his exceptional dedication during a humanitarian deployment actually gave him a chance to become a prestigious JAG paralegal, which like only between 5 and 20% people are actually accepted for that program over the last 5 years. So it gives you a little bit of a taste on what he's all about in regards to dedication, work ethic, and just taking care of sailors, service members, and everyone in between. So Manuel had a naval journey. It came to an abrupt stop due to mental health challenges, and also didn't really help with the psychologist on board the ship. So I'm interested to hear about that and the stigmas that was during your time as well. He's a husband and a father of 4, so he got his hands full. He's going back to school. He's always continuing his education and trying to help more veterans alike. And upon his return to civilian life, he struggled to adjust. I mean, sounds familiar, right? It seems like that's one of the main talking points on this show, our adjustment. How do we overcome those pitfalls? He relied on unemployment benefits and the GI Bill to support his family and enrolled in registered nursing school. However, PTSD led him down a dark path of drug use and actually made him go to get locked away for a roughly 5-year sentence. And he shared all this information to put it out and let you guys know, he's overcome all these things. And I don't want to touch too much on it myself. I want to say that for him. Some of the challenge that he faced by many veterans is also something that Manuel had to do himself. PTSD, mental health, just the readjustment in civilian life. But at the end of the day, his resiliency and his adversity is inspiring. I've only known him for like last 15, 20 minutes before signing up for this podcast. But without further ado, Manuel, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much. Like I said, you're saying I'm a wealth of knowledge, but I think you also have a wealth of knowledge. I had a beautiful conversation with you for about 10 minutes, and you're doing some amazing work, man. And I appreciate you giving us this platform so we can show veterans that no matter what you go through, you can always overcome adversity. The military gives us one skill set, and that's to suck it up and push through the hard stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm open for questions. I have a pretty diverse story. Hope to motivate some people and show them that we can do this.
Absolutely, dude. I appreciate you being vulnerable and taking the time out of your day to join me, and hopefully everyone's going to enjoy this conversation as well. So I usually like to ask, what made you join the Navy? Like, what was it to you so that you're ready? You know what? I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, so I joined the Navy because my parents decided to move from beautiful San Diego, California, over to Tucson, Arizona when I was about 10 years old. Right.
Okay.
I'm coming from San Diego, surf, beautiful beaches, beautiful women, And next thing you know, I'm stuck in a desert with cactus all over me, right? So
yeah,
I wanted to leave the desert as far as I could. So I joined the Navy because there ain't no Navy in the desert.
Nah, dude. I mean, you were a boater or what, man? Like, you like that, or you didn't even really know?
No, I just wanted to, to be honest, I wanted to get away from some of the stuff that I was going through my family. My dad was an alcoholic, and my mom, she had some mental health issues, and there was a lot of trauma in my childhood, and it was just a way for me to escape and, try to do something better for myself.
No, absolutely. Did you think you were just going to do a couple years and get out, or what? Did you just say, you know what, I'm about to sail away and make this thing like a career?
I wanted it to be a career, to be honest. I joined, as a quartermaster and then fell in love with the legal field. And I just, for me, I felt like I was born to do that work, and I wanted to stay there forever.
Yeah. So how was like that transition, even from, being a quartermaster into even trying to get involved in the JAG program? Like, was that something that you set out to do? Was it something that was recommended to you? How'd that all play out?
So what happened is we went on this humanitarian deployment. I believe it was in 2007, 2008, on the USS Peleliu, and So I was on the USS Peleliu, which is like a mini aircraft carrier, but it's designed to carry Marines. It carries a whole Marine Expeditionary Unit. But since we were doing this humanitarian mission, we weren't going to take Marines with us, but they still needed some jobs that were done by the traditional Marines. and they decided to just assign all the junior sailors to a unit called combat cargo, which is basically unloading and offloading the equipment off the ship. So, as you know, you unload and offload the ship, but when you're underway in the ocean, there really isn't a lot of things to do. So I had a lot of time on my hand, and I met this just randomly. I met this paralegal. Her name was Maricela Letiri. Shout out to her. Absolutely amazing individual. Gave me a shot. We were just talking, and she's like, "Hey, what do you do? I always see you just like walking around the ship." I'm like, "Well, I got assigned to combat cargo during this deployment, and I really don't have nothing to do." And she's like, "Do you like the law?" And I'm like, "I mean, not really, but." She's like, "Well, if you're interested." I'm in officer's country. I got a TV. I got some work for you if you want to learn. And it just started like that. I would end up going, 1 hour a day. This was a long deployment, so 1 hour a day. She started teaching me what she did, and I had a knack for it. She first started having me write letters, right, for people that got in trouble that would go to Article 15, and I would write the letters. And she's like, "Wow, you have a lot of attention to detail," and that's how it started. Started 1 hour, 2 hours. The next thing you know, when my tour with combat cargo was over, they asked me to. I asked my chief, my chief, if I could just not be a part of my quartermaster department, and the lieutenant that was running the admin department, where Ellen won at that time. She's a retired chief now. They all had like a backdoor meeting and said, "Hey, you know what? This guy's been with combat cargo for a bunch of months. He's really not doing anything for quartermasters. He doesn't have his quals. I don't mind losing him to go to the legal department." And that's exactly what happened. They let me go. They gave me like a temporary assignment to the legal department, and I started running a lot of the NJPs, doing like a lot of what we call, for us in the Navy, they're called like chief boards, right? Where you go in, they're called DRBs, disciplinary review boards. When somebody gets in trouble, they go in front of all the chiefs, and the chiefs pretty much like, they just murder you, talking shit, making you feel like shit because you screwed up and you're in front of this board, right?
Yeah.
So the chiefs love me, man, because that, like, back then you don't really talk about that. What happens behind those closed doors, you keep your mouth shut, and whoever's going for Article 15, and they like that I would just like, I would never say nothing. It was kind of funny what you were watching, throwing chairs across the room, just doing some way out shit, trying to get these junior sailors to get their shit together. Like you punched your wife, man. Like, why'd you do that? And it was wild in those rooms. But I'm like a little E3, not barely being in the Navy a couple of years in this opportunity, and they took me under their wing, and that's where it started. Ended up being in that department. I made E4 while I was in that department. In order to be a legalman back then, you had to be an E4.
Okay.
So I had to wait to become an E4 to apply to the program, and that's exactly what I did. I studied. I had to redo the ASVAB, so I studied, redid the ASVAB. While I was redoing the ASVAB, I had made an E4 unexpectedly, and I got selected to go to the school.
How was like going to that school? How long was it? Did you have to go underway for that?
What actually happened is that they put a they delayed my school because we were going to be redeployed. We were going to be redeployed very quickly, unexpectedly. So I had just got back home with the family, just came back from deployment, and then we got orders to get redeployed again for a traditional deployment.
Okay.
And so my schooling got delayed. But what happened, which was interesting, is a couple of days before that deployment, like I'm getting out of bed and my wife's looking at me like all weird. I'm like, "What the hell are you looking at me for?" Well, I had this huge old ball on my neck, like a golf ball thing that just popped up on my neck.
That's crazy.
And I don't know what the hell that was. So went to medical, and then they thought it was cancer. They thought it was all these weird like diseases from the humanitarian deployment. So I got taken off the ship, and that pretty much put a kink on everything, right?
Oh, so you were on the ship when that happened?
Yeah. So
I got
taken off. I got taken off the deployment. All my legal plans got put to pause, and I was assigned limited duty to go to medical to figure out what the hell was wrong with me.
So what they end up saying was wrong with you?
It ended up being called scrofula, which is a weird tuberculosis of the lymph nodes.
That's wild. Were you in pain? Were you
No,
in pain?
There was no pain. It was just this weird, like, Quasimodo thing on my freaking neck.
That's kind of crazy you say that because, dude, when I was in Germany, one day I woke up and my whole mouth was swollen like a beach ball, dude. Went to the TMC, they didn't know what to do. Went to like a German like hospital and stayed in there like a couple of days and like got like a IV and like medicine. That shit was crazy, dude. Like what?
Yeah, it was nuts. But because I was on limited duty, I got attached to the base, and
Okay.
mom that Chief Lettieri, she pulled some strings, and usually as a quartermaster, when you get temporarily assigned to the base, you're going to be driving like the little security boats. That's your job, because quartermasters are usually like coxswains, they're navigators. And she
Okay.
pulled some strings, and she got me assigned to the Region Legal Service Office, which
Okay.
is like the largest legal office that does all the like court martials and stuff like that.
Okay, I got you.
So it was so that was it was that's how my life always is, right? And even in the face of misery, I get gifts, right? I'm going through this
Yeah.
like weird tuberculosis Quasimodo thing on my neck, right? And but I get assigned to one of the premier legal units on the whole West Coast, and I get to learn from these paralegals and really basically refine my skills and prepare to go to school eventually, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Luckily, they gave a nurse like randomly one day she's like, we've done all these damn tests and we can't figure this out. Let's do a tuberculosis test. And they did it on my arm, and that thing
Yeah.
just lit up like a Christmas tree, dude. Like my whole
Damn.
arm reacted to that PPD test, and they're like,
Yeah.
we finally know what it is. They put me in isolation. They realized it was
Damn.
non-pulmonary tuberculosis. But what's funny is that when you get tuberculosis in the United States, that's a reportable disease that has to go to the Department of Public Health.
Okay.
So, like, they had to isolate me. Then they had to set up cameras at my house, and a nurse came and they made sure that
Holy shit.
I took all this medication to make sure that I wasn't contagious for the community, because tuberculosis is a serious thing. So
Right.
I was stuck doing that for like 9 months. Like, first it was the hospital taking my meds, then it was at my house. A nurse would come to my house. Then eventually they installed the camera, and I would have to come home on camera and take all this medication. Once I took all the medication, they did a biopsy. They removed the ball. I have a little scar there, and they gave me some tests, and I was back to normal. And then luckily I was at that legal office and finished all the requirements to go to legal school, and I ended up going to Newport, Rhode Island for a few months. A few months of hell. It was pretty much an associate's degree, like in 12 weeks. School,
Damn.
like 12 hours a day. I learned everything about being a legal man, and loved it out there. I love Newport, Rhode Island. Was some of the best times I've had in the Navy. I still have some friends that I talked to from those days. It's funny, they actually wrote me letters for an expungement for my that I applied for a few weeks ago. Well, actually a few months ago. But yeah, ended up, I got attached to the USS Abraham Lincoln, after I finished legalman school. Got attached to a carrier in Washington State.
How was life aboard a ship for you? Like, cause me, I know I get motion sickness. Like I always mention that when I talk to someone in the Navy or so they've been on a ship. Like I just don't think I grow sea legs, dude. What about for you?
For me, since I was on really big ships, you don't really feel that movement. An LHA is about 800, 900 feet, and a carrier, they're huge. So they're so
Right.
big, you don't really feel the movements. I
That's
did
good.
get seasick a little bit at times, when I was helping out as a quartermaster, helping out, like mooring the ship and doing stuff like that, but never really felt it, because these were huge, huge ships.
I got you. So how was it when you got out to the West Coast and you got through that legalman school? What were you doing? What was going through your mind when you reported out there? Like what was your next mission for yourself?
For me, like, I just wanted to be like the best paralegal in the Navy. I was like, really, really motivated, but I noticed that I wasn't feeling like right. Something was off with me. Ever since I got like the tuberculosis, like I just didn't feel like the same person anymore.
What? Go ahead.
I just feel like I didn't belong, like being on limited duty, and like I was treated really badly on the base. Like, oh, the people on limited duty, they just want to get out of deployments. They don't really want to be a part of the military. And for me, it's like, man, deploy me as much as you can. I just got sick, In 5 years,
Yeah.
I did 3.5 deployments. Usually,
Right.
like one in your first enlistment, and I was just treated really badly, and I really had adjustment issues. And I tried to go to, like, when I got, even though I was really motivated and I was really good at hiding, a lot of my underlying psychological issues, just feeling like lost and hopeless and thinking like, man, these people are not going to like me because they saw that I kind of, skated out of a deployment, because that's their impression, right? When you go on limited duty, you're skating a deployment. And
Right.
I just thought that when I was going to get to the ship that there's going to be this weird vibe. And there kind of was, I've always been really good at my job. And I noticed that I'm going to take ownership for myself. I kind of had a little ego, bro. I had a chip on my shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Because I've always been like intelligent. I was like top of the class in legalman school. I felt like I knew it all. I was green and I was young. So my ego did get a little bit of the best of it. Like my ego got hurt, and I went to the ship psych because I just, like I said, I was feeling off. I didn't feel like I was myself anymore. And like any freaking military doctor, what's the solution? Take a pill and move on, right?
Yeah.
Take a pill and move on. And man, those pills really fucking screwed me up. They gave me like Adderall, and it was like speed. She's like, "Oh, you just have ADHD. You just need to focus. Here's some Adderall. And here's this like psych meds that'll help you out." But for like the few months that I was on that ship, dude, I was just messing stuff up. I couldn't focus. I felt like I was always on edge. I didn't realize that I was having adverse symptoms to the medication that the psychologist was giving me.
Yeah. Side effects. Yeah, you're having side effects from what you're taking for something that they think you have that you might not even be dealing with.
Yeah, I just needed some therapy and some counseling just to be able to find myself again, because I felt like I almost lost my career with tuberculosis. Like my dream was to be in the Navy forever. And, for like 9 months, I didn't know what was going on medically. I didn't know what was going on with my career. I had a wife and I had kids. So that kind of messes you up and your livelihood is at stake. And it was that unknown factor for so long, right?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's not like you woke up and said, "Let me get tuberculosis today."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's fucked up that people look at you like that and like shun you or something like that, when in all reality, I don't know, man, there's not too many people trying to do the wrong thing in there. Most of the time, people in the military trying to at least do the right thing and just not get yelled at or whatever. And then they got people go above and beyond. And there's a few people that try to abuse the system, but yeah, man, sorry to hear that, like that you felt like that, because it's not going to help your mental state when you're even more isolated because you're on a ship. Like you're probably only around the same. It's like a deployment, but a deployment you go, well, I don't know, you're still isolated, but on the ship it's probably a much smaller amount of people, and in that confined area, and it's like, damn. Yeah. So what?
Yeah, definitely. What makes it harder too is like being a legalman on a ship. I didn't know this, but you're kind of the bad guy, dude, because you're sending everybody to Article 15.
Yeah, you just process, but if they can look at it from the point of you're the person to process that, you're not the one giving them that. Not like you're not an E3 E4 saying, I'm gonna give you Article 15. You're just processing the paperwork, right or wrong.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But a lot of times you get the shit end of the stick, for lack of better words, right? Because they're not going to go to the lieutenant or the lieutenant commander or the chief and talk shit. So they'll talk shit. They're going to talk shit to the E4, right? Especially like the E5 or E6. So that was that was a little bit rough, but basically dealing with all those mental health issues on the ship, I really wasn't getting any support from my department, and I had like a psych medication induced psychosis where I just did some stupid shit that I really don't like to talk about, but I did some stupid shit off base that ended up with like me catching like a Article 128 for assault. And being a paralegal, my department, they didn't ask like what's going on or like, no, they crucified me, bro. They literally crucified me, and they kicked me out of my department and sent me to what's called cranking.
What's that?
Cranking in the Navy, everybody does it that's a junior enlisted sailor. It's like the assistants to the cooks on the ship.
Oh, so like KP, like kitchen duty. I got you.
Yeah, everybody in the Navy gets kitchen duty. You do it for 3 months. It's like you get baptized by some grease and some hard ass working in the kitchen, right? You can imagine working on a carrier kitchen, serving 5,000 sailors is a pretty shitty job. What was interesting at that time, I ended up making E5, even though I was kind of in trouble. I ended up making E5.
Okay.
And my department, they kicked me out of the legal department because they were investigating me for my assault, and they didn't want me to be in the department. So they sent me to the shittiest fucking department, and we were deploying.
Yeah.
So we were getting ready to deploy. So for a whole deployment, usually people do 3 months. I ended up doing 9 months cranking while I'm going through
Damn.
that whole investigative thing, and that's unheard of. Like somebody doesn't go through an Article 15 for like 9 months. They just made my life a living hell, and that made my mental health worse because now the one job I loved and the one job in the department that I wanted to support, um, they did the opposite. They ostracized me. They kicked me out of the berthing. They put me in this random berthing with the air department. They put me cranking, and they just like it was 12 hours a day, um, just doing this miserable work. And it was because it was caused by medication that was given by the ship psychologist. Long story short, we come back from deployment, and they try to do like a fast like summary court martial on the ship, but because I had a legal background, I knew how to kind of get away with it. They gave me like a bunch of charges. It was like Article 92, failure to obey. Um, they just basically gave me a whole list of charges for one assault. Eventually, it took them like 9 months to take me to NJP. The captain dismissed everything but one charge, which was failure to obey. But
Okay.
if you want to push the line in the Navy, you can get a general discharge, and they can paper you out just because you're unable to do your job. So that's exactly what they did. Is that they put me through hell through those 9 months. As soon as we got back from deployment, within like maybe a week, there's like, here's your papers and have a nice day.
What does push the line mean? Does that mean put you out?
Yeah, like put me
Okay.
out of the yeah.
Chap you out for like failure to just do your job or whatever.
Yeah, because
That's wild, dude. So you said they gave you the paperwork and gave you how many days?
So actually, I missed a really important part. I forgot.
Oh, go ahead.
So what they did was, what happened is that they really couldn't get me in trouble for what I did because there was no evidence, and I didn't ever told them about the mental health stuff because I didn't want to admit it. But what they did is, since I had made E5, the way it works in the Navy is that you have to wait like 6 months before you can actually be paid for the rank. You can wear it. You can wear the rank.
That's crazy.
But it's called being frocked, right?
Okay.
So
I got you on that.
Technically, on paper, I was an E4.
Okay.
When I went to NJP, and even though they dismissed everything for that 92, they did a reduction in rate. As a paralegal, you have to be an E4. You can't be an E3. So
I got you.
I went from E4 to E3. So I immediately became ineligible for my job. That was like a loophole that department did.
Jesus.
To get me out. And I was like, man, that's like a bad move. So the reason why it took 9 months was because I was appealing over and over and over. And I was able to get the admiral of I was able to get a flag review on my case because they didn't have any evidence. And what they did, I was already going through all of this. I was like, you know what? I've been through hell these 9 months. I just want to get the fuck out of the Navy. Like, I'm done, man. I gave my heart to this organization, and it is what it is. Like, they're the ones that caused this, but none of this shit matters, whatever. So just let me out. So like I said, like that last week, they kind of saw me like I was just done with the fight because I've been fighting them for a whole deployment. Like, they're like, look, we'll just give you a general. What we'll do is you have 6 years in the Navy, and what we'll do is we'll make sure that on your DD-214, we annotate that you had an honorable period of enlistment. What that does is that even though I got a general discharge, I technically have a 4-year period of honorable service,
Right.
which makes me fully eligible for all the benefits.
Right.
So even though like the chief and like the E7 and the E6 of that department like just hated my guts because they felt like I embarrassed them, the lawyer felt kind of bad for me, and he's like, look, you're not going to win this shit. We'll give you a general, but you're still going to have an honorable and you'll be eligible for the GI Bill. And he kind of gave me a little bit of hope. He's like, look, you can get unemployment and you get the GI Bill. You'll get about $5,000 a month and you can support your family in California till you graduate. So that was like, you know what? I'll just do that. Sign the papers, get out of the Navy. And that was it, right?
So like, what was your plan for you to when you were get out? Because you were pissed, obviously, because you're going through all that bullshit, and then you go. What was did you have your plan minus the thing that the officer put into your ear? You know, the lawyer put into your ear about going to school and doing the unemployment. What'd you have going on in your head?
I didn't have no plan, dude. I literally was just like I was fucked up. I mean, like the one organization that was supposed to um, support me, like ostracized me, and I'm gonna take accountability, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
probably should have like not responded with like erratic and violent behavior and have that assault. But at the end of the day, like hindsight 2020 and discussing with some of the psychiatrists that I've spoken in the last 10 years, um, I have to accept that yes, I was responsible for my behavior, but at the same time, they should have checked if I had any adverse reactions to medication. So we discovered that I'm very susceptible to psychiatric medication. I didn't know this shit, you know.
Yeah.
That's how I was able to get my 100% because I discovered this after the military.
Right.
But they should have asked me and assessed me properly, not just give me Adderall and lorazepam, which caused the adverse reaction. But to answer your question, I didn't have a plan. Like I was lost. The only, like I said, he gave me some decent advice, and I went to the Washington State Unemployment Office. Literally, went to the Washington State Unemployment Office. I filled out the paperwork. Maybe like the next day, I got on an airplane and went back to California. My wife was actually living in a house that she was renting from her uncle, so at least I had a place to live. You know,
Yeah.
I had just come back from deployment, so prior to that deployment, I had moved my wife. My wife had moved with me to Washington, but since I was deploying, she moved back to California, where she's originally from, and she had a place in California while I was deployed. So luckily, I had a place to go. Right, I had somewhere to
Yeah.
go to in Whittier, California.
So
But
you didn't I'm assuming you didn't get a VA rating before you got out, or did you?
no, dude, I didn't want to do nothing with the military, dude, at
You
all.
just you just ready to go. Like I
I
don't give
was
a
like,
damn
done.
even what.
Yeah, I didn't have no appropriate transition, no supportive services, nothing. For me, the only thing that I had was the GI Bill and the state Washington unemployment. And back then, it was kind of like there was that time where they were giving you like those extra payments for unemployment back in 2011.
Okay.
So I was able to get Washington state unemployment and California unemployment
Okay.
because I worked in Washington, but I lived in California. So I was able to double dip on those checks. Plus, I was able to get my GI Bill. In California, it's a pretty high GI Bill rate. Back then
Oh
was like
yeah.
$2,700, almost 3,000. Yeah, like I think it was like $2,700. And my wife's uncle was cool. He was like, you know what? I know you just got out. I'll let you get back on your feet. He barely charged us anything for rent, dude. Like I have his name's David Marcus. I give him so much respect because I wouldn't have been able to support my family back then if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely,
he
dude. That.
actually, yeah.
Jeez.
And when I went to prison, he barely charged my wife any rent while I was in prison.
You want to touch on that real quick on like because it seems like you get. I mean, you got out and you had family to back you up. You had the GI Bill, which is good, dude. It took me after going through like 12 different jobs in food service. I'm like, all right, these are all pretty much the same dead end. No one gives a fuck. No one's paying nothing. Why am I not going to school and getting the $2,500 a month? You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah.
guarantee. That's a guarantee. But like, what happened after you got all that stuff acquainted with like, and you end up like getting a charge?
Yeah. So what happened is, so came back to California and I started going to, I think what school did I start going to? I, so came back. Actually, when I applied for that unemployment, the unemployment person said, "Hey, you know that there's a program at Cypress College, which was a local community college, that if you're a veteran, you can become a nurse, a registered nurse."
Okay.
And I was like, I looked it up. I was like, man, they make like $50 an hour. I mean, all I got to do is pass physiology, anatomy, and microbiology, and I'll get into the program. So that was my plan. That was it. I got out, signed up for Cypress College, and enrolled in their GI Bill. And it took me like a year to get those prerequisites. But during that time, like I was like just really struggling, and I was self-medicating through one of my classmates who was selling me Adderall. That's how I was surviving. Right, I didn't have to work because I had the unemployment and I had the GI Bill, but I started dabbling really into just using Adderall and just making bad choices. Using substances to cope with all the fucked up shit that I, just lost my job in the Navy. I got kids. I got a family. Like I don't know what to do, and
Yeah.
I was like on autopilot. For me, it was like this guy told me about unemployment. This guy told me about nursing school, and I'm gonna just follow it. I
Yeah.
didn't. I wasn't passionate about nursing. It was just a path, right? Luckily, it was funny, right? I applied to the nursing school, and I didn't get in, bro.
Why
Like,
not?
I did bad on my microbiology test. So it was a point system. So basically they
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to get into nursing school, it's like 5 or 6 different areas. And then if you're a veteran, they give you like 10 points. And then that gives you like a high score to get in, right? So like
yeah.
so I missed it by like 1 point. And I was like, damn, what am I gonna do? Like, when you're on the GI Bill, like my education plan said I had to get to nursing school by 2013. If I don't get, I mean, it was 2013. Like if I don't get to nursing school by 2013, like I have to either change my career. So I was pretty devastated, and like I was like, you know what, screw it. I did the worst mistake of my life and went and got some meth from some dude I knew, and I took a hit. Luckily, I I've all, and this is coming from an addiction counselor's perspective. This is a very contradicting statement, but for me, meth was never a problem in my life. It was me making choices that surrounded when I was uh, to support the meth habit, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
I always only did a little bit of drugs because I always felt that if I never smoked it, I always snorted it. I never felt that if I would like just snort it, I would be able to manage it. And I was able to manage it for about 18 months. But long story short, is like I took that hit and I was like, man, what the hell am I doing? Like I'm about to freaking destroy my life. The next day I get an email that somebody dropped the program and I was the first person on the wait list and got into the nursing program.
But here, go take a piss test real quick or something like that, right? Or like, yeah,
No,
like
so
you're ready to
luckily,
go. What happened?
yeah, so that like got I kind of got my shit together, and
Okay.
I was like, you know what, like man, if I would have continued down this path, I really would have fucked it up. Well, anyways, I get into nursing school and I'm doing pretty good the first couple semesters, and but I'm just it's nursing school is fucking hard.
Oh yeah, you gotta know shit, man. That you gotta know all them doses. You gotta know everything. You gotta know
Yeah,
all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely, dude.
that
You're
shit.
yeah.
I've always been able to bullshit my way through school. I couldn't bullshit my way through nursing school.
Not medical shit, dude. Nah, you ain't gonna.
No.
Yeah,
And
nah.
then you got clinicals and all this shit, right? So,
Yeah,
anyways, so I started, a couple of my classmates, we started doing Adderall so we can do our clinicals and do all our homework, and that led into me really going down this dark path of I ended up using substances again, and what really led me to use substances is that my unemployment stopped. So my unemployment stopped and I had no way to make money. So I started dabbling into selling a little bit of drugs. I'm not a drug dealer. I was like, did that for like 5 minutes. And then I've always had a good IT background and I made some poor choices where I did, I don't want to glorify my crime or anything like that, but basically I ended up making some poor choices in the middle of my program where I was stealing people's identities and ended up in prison because I decided to go into somebody's house and violate their safe space. I did some fucked up shit. I did some residential burglaries to support my habit. Not only my habit, but really to support my family. I had this like under the stupid idea of being on these drugs. I was like, I'm just gonna go steal people's credit cards, and I'm not gonna steal nothing from their houses, and I'm gonna just have the insurance companies pay for it. In this really weird, um, like skewed way of looking at things. I was an idiot. The reality is I was going into people's houses and I was violating their privacy. I was a piece of shit. And I didn't realize that till I developed insight in prison. But me thinking I'm the super smart guy, had this great genius plan. Um, I didn't wear gloves. I didn't fucking do all the need. I wasn't a criminal. And I had a little crew, and one of those guys in my crew ended up catching a pretty serious case for murder. And he's like, well, I know this dude who goes to nursing school and he's been running this like credit card residential burglary crew for the last like 6, 7 months. And next thing you know, the cops roll up on my house. I have all these credit cards. I have all this interstate stuff that I've been all this crime. I was doing a lot of stuff. I had a, in anyways, long story short, I ended up getting arrested on my daughter's birthday because of all the crimes that I
man.
was doing. I would tell I was an idiot. I would tell my wife that I would go to clinicals on the weekends, and I would actually go and commit crime. And nobody knew that I was committing crime. Nobody knew that I was doing drugs. I had good grades in school. I thought I had it all together, but just that mistake of violating people's privacies and deciding to commit crime, I got caught, man. It took 18 months from the start of doing some drugs and starting this little crime spree, um, where I ended up with fucking facing the harsh reality that California does not play around, bro.
No, I don't think a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people are going to play around. Honestly, like
And
what do you think? What do you think got you to that lowest point? Not only that, another question I want to ask you is like, what was the first thing you thought about when they showed up at your house on your daughter's birthday?
well, actually, we were at Applebee's. By the way, we don't eat at Applebee's anymore. I got a call from my wife's uncle. He's like, dude, I got like the SWAT team and the sheriffs raiding my house. What the fuck did you do?
Damn.
And I had a stack. I had some cash in my pocket. I walked out. I gave my wife. I'm sorry, man. This is you don't realize how like when you have a family and you make decisions, you don't understand the impact of those decisions on your family. You know, and I don't.
Yeah.
This is the most I've talked about it in years, and it's funny. I work in this space now. I'm like, I saw my daughter's like face, and I told my wife, I was like, you know what, it is what it is. Here's some cash. Grab the car. I took off to Arizona, bro.
Damn.
I was gonna go on the run. I was about 3 hours into me on the run. My wife calls me and she's like, "You gotta face the music." I have an absolutely amazing wife. She's been with me for 17 years. I couldn't. She's an angel, bro. She stuck through me through the military, through my addiction, through prison, and she's still there, pregnant with her fifth kid.
Damn. OG
And
Rider. OG Rider.
oh, you have charisma. I love you with all my heart. Like she is. I wouldn't be where I'm at, but she called me. She's all face the music. I turned around, and the cops were still at the house. My wife had taken the kids somewhere so they wouldn't see me getting arrested. And I told them, I was like, "Hey, I'm back," and they put me in cuffs. And um, I was offered a program that at that time I thought it was the best program possible. It was called expedited disposition processing, where like the public defender says, "Hey, we're going to give you this deal. This is the best deal on the table. You have all these charges. Take it or leave it. 6 years." I was kind of facing a federal case too, but because of some technicalities, they weren't able to prosecute me on the federal case because my wife's uncle actually had an address for the back house.
Okay.
And so when they did the search warrant, it was for the front house, not the back house. So I beat the Fed case in like a bunch of years. I beat that case, but I still had like some burglary paraphernalia and some burglary items in my car, and I ended up getting 6 years for residential burglary. First time ever getting in trouble, first time ever getting arrested, I got maxed out. That residential burglary in California takes you either get the minimum, the medium, or the max, 2, 4, or 6. No questions asked. My attorney said, "Look, they're not going to chase you on the federal case. Take these 6 years and have a nice day. You'll get 50%." And ended up in prison and showed up to prison, and I continued my same addictive behaviors. I escaped in drugs for a while, dude. And so here in California, the sentencing structure is that if it's your first offense, it's non-violent, you can do half time. So I was supposed to do 3 years on the 6th, and then because I was non-violent, I got sent to fire camp. So you do what's called 33%, which is 2 years out of the 6th. So I was technically supposed to do 2 years in prison.
Okay.
And here in California, there is some political organizations that, being a Hispanic, you have to partake. Either you join it or you get stabbed. You don't have a choice. You have to join the political organization. It starts with an M. I'm not really going to put it out there, but a lot of people know what I'm talking about here in California prisons, right? You have to join. And because of my involvement in that criminal organization, I continued my addiction, and I ended up catching an additional 4 years for distribution. I got arrested in prison. That's how bad I was doing. Like I was already in prison, and I got arrested in prison. Obviously, I'm not a good criminal. Trust me, there's a good ending to the story. And I actually ended up in the security housing unit. I was scheduled to go to Tehachapi, which is so here in California, you have the infamous Pelican Bay SHU, right? and then you have like Tehachapi and a couple other shoes. Shoes is basically like the prison within prison. And because I was going through the court systems, I ended up doing what's called the shoe term in the administrative segregation unit, where you're in a cell by yourself, locked down 23 hours a day for a year, going through this criminal case, right? That's the best thing that happened to me, right? That is literally the best thing that happened to me, because I always thought I was smarter than everybody else. But being on lockdown for 23 hours a day, you have a lot of time to think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, because I was a member of this political organization, something happened that was unexpected. So when you're back there, the cells are connected through vents, and you can talk through vents. And I had some individuals who'd been in prison a very long time, and they had a pretty difficult conversation with me. And they used my moniker. They said, "Hey, so and so, what are you doing back here? You're a short timer. What the hell are you doing back here? You're supposed to come in and go home." These guys who are like are hardened murderers and criminals and are like back in the secure housing unit for stabbing people and murdering people on prison are telling me like, "What the hell are you doing back here? You don't belong here. You're supposed to like do your time and go home. You're not a criminal. You're not a gang member. You're not any like what the fuck." And they prohibited me from using drugs back there. So it's a very tight-knit political organization.
Yeah.
The prisons communicate across California. Everything's connected. So if I would do drugs back there, they would send a little kite to a prison, and when I would land on that prison, if I violated it, I would get stabbed.
Damn.
So they saved my life, dude. Like they said, "Look, you got to work out 4 hours a day. You got to read some books. You said you were a paralegal, so get us out of trouble." So basically, for this year, I got all the legal books that I could get from the library. I figured out that I could find some relief for me. I could find some relief for the guys, and I found God. I've always been religious, but I found God, and I got sober. And although I relapsed once, and since I've been out of prison, just because I was an idiot, but that's when I really found sobriety and I found myself. And that was in 2016. I during that time I got sent over to. So I did my year in the shoe, got out super healthy, super sober, and ended up at Folsom State Prison. I was devastated to be at Folsom State Prison.
Why you feel like that?
It was the farthest prison from my house.
Oh damn!
You know, and I only had two to three visits while I was in prison, because it's far and it's expensive. But going to Folsom, like I said, always finding hope in misery, right? I found hope and misery in the shoe. These guys cared about me. Like, these were some of the first people in my life that really fucking cared about me. My dad, I was never good enough for my dad. Obviously, I wasn't good enough for the Navy. I couldn't hack it in nursing school. And dude, I'm in prison on 23-hour lockdown, and these damn murderers are caring out about me and preventing me from using drugs because they want to see the best version of me. And that's when I really started changing. Like, and that's one thing in the addiction world is that you can't force change upon somebody. Change happens when the person decides to really change.
You're right.
Ended up in Folsom, and I ended up at a rehabilitation yard. There was all these programs and all these lifers who were just wanting to go home. It was at a time in California where the laws were changing, and people were actually going home that were on life sentences. You know, for a long time, if you got a life sentence, you were going home on a pine box. That's it.
Yeah.
But you know, from 2011 all the way up until now, it started changing. So people started doing all these like rehabilitation groups, substance use training, like Gavel Club, learning how to speak properly. I went to college at Folsom State Prison. I got 4 associate's degrees. I really started to find myself in my faith, and I started doing all these programs, not because I thought I was going to be a good person, but because I got time off.
Right. Well, what was the hardest thing about the 23-1 for 1 year, dude? Was it just being there pretty much locked down, or what was it?
No, the hardest thing about being locked down was having to face myself. That's the hardest.
Not be able to mask yourself with drugs or like whatever you
No.
like there, just thinking with all sober minded with everything in your head blowing up on you.
Yeah, thinking about like everything, how I fucked up the Navy, how I destroyed my marriage, how I went to prison on my daughter's birthday, like for days and days and days. And one thing about prisons in California, they're very organized for a reason. And even when you're on 23-hour lockdown, these political organizations have a schedule for a reason. You wake up in the morning, and it's called the Buenos Dias. It's kind of funny, right? It's like in the morning you wake up and you got to scream at the top of your lungs at the door to let everybody know that you're awake. Like you say like, Buenos Dias, camaradas. This is so-and-so. Good morning to everybody. So you have like a schedule. You wake up at a certain time, you eat at a certain time, you work at a certain time, you read books at a certain time. This is 200 dudes on a lockdown facility, but they're all speaking to each other through vents and through kites. It's a militant environment.
Right.
And I assimilated it to it really good because I'm a guy from the military. It was just follow the rules and do it, right?
Yeah.
So that structure really allowed me to just focus and not make it as hard as it would be. But those times where I'm like, I had to really face myself and be like, you're not a good person. That was the hardest part. Is you're broken down to your most simplest form. You know, like it was brutal, but you know, this community helped me get through it. I still don't know how I did it. And it's funny, sometimes I still think about those times and I realize how traumatic prison has been. But luckily I have a good therapist and some good services that we'll talk about right now. But that was the hardest part, man.
So what about the other thing that you also got in prison? You got something else. Remember what you told me when we were talking a little bit before? What else did you tell me you get in prison? What else did you get in prison when you told me the VA disability? You said you got your rating in prison, right?
Oh yeah. So
yeah, hit on that.
So I ended up at Folsom State Prison, right? This is a rehabilitation prison. They had a huge veterans group, like a really robust veterans group with these old timers that have been in prison for like 30 years. And dude, these guys can go to toe with any VSO out there, bro.
Damn.
And these guys don't got the internet. They got books and they got time. So they're experts in how to do ratings. So some OG took me under his wing, and I had a little bit more of like the more recent information because my wife would mail me stuff, and I was able to access some stuff through like some of the prison staff were nice enough to print me out some of the VA guides from the VA website. They're not supposed to do that, but they were able to do that. So what actually happened is a VA social worker came to visit us at Folsom State Prison. And she told me that I was eligible for a rating, that I could use my mental health, and that I was eligible for getting some relief, maybe going home early because the courts never took into consideration my military service.
Yeah, you never did veterans court or nothing like that. I think you guys had that, right?
It was never offered to me. So I basically like just took that information and ran with it, and I wrote all my conditions. My wife sent me over my military record. I was able to basically in my cell write my VA 0995 and all the VA forms to get my rating. I was able to petition to have a psychiatrist come to the prison. And I was able to get rated at 10%, although he wanted to kind of they wanted to rate me like at 80% because it was 70% for PTSD, and then you know how I have that scar for tuberculosis and some issues with my lungs. Yeah. That was rateable. I didn't know none of that stuff was rateable, right?
Yeah.
But the psychiatrist was kind of a dick, so he just like he said, "Yeah, I'm going to give you like all these ratings," but he ended up only doing the scars.
Okay.
And luckily, I got the 10%. And then I appealed it a few times while I was there, and because one thing that you don't realize is that your rights are taken away as a veteran when you get incarcerated. If you're incarcerated more than 60 days, you lose your VA rating. It goes down significantly.
Oh wow.
So and that's a fight that we're fighting now. But that social worker, like I said, I was able to to get my rating in prison, and that social worker put me onto some laws. I was able to file a habeas corpus petition. So I actually filed two petitions: one disputing the distribution case, and one asking for relief for Veterans Court. Luckily, so luckily the habeas corpus for the distribution came back first, and I got it granted. So all that time that I picked up
Yeah.
because of that case, it got thrown out the window. And I instead of going home in 2024, because remember, I had a 6-year original sentence, but
Yeah.
the moment I got in trouble, all those good time credits went away, and I had to
Okay.
do my full time sentence. But I also got
Okay.
an additional 4 years in
4.
prison, so that was a 10-year sentence.
Right.
So, but luckily, because when I was at Folsom and I landed in 2016, 2017, I started doing all these classes, and I was able to start. I was starting to chip down at that 10-year date,
Yeah.
and I ended up doing 3 associate's degrees in 1 year because I had all that education from the nursing school. I only needed 30 units to get an associate's degree, so I grinded. I literally took, I think it was like 8 to 9 classes a semester.
Yeah.
To get those associate's degrees. While I was doing all of that, the social worker made me aware that I could get all this relief. So what happened is I got that relief, and it got granted, and I was able to go home like 4 years early. But it's not easy. What's funny is that I did my colleges, I did all these classes, I really rehabilitated myself. I found myself. I did substance use treatment while I was in prison. So I learned the skill sets to maintain sober. I did NAA. I did all those classes to really better myself. And I really discovered my triggers and everything so I can be prepared that when I got out of prison, I had the skill sets to really be successful. I educated myself. I got some certifications, and I got the real transition that I needed back in the Navy. I got it in prison, and I was ready to go. And I came out at the right time when there was organizations like Project Rebound, which is a student equity program at the Cal States that helps you get a bachelor's degree. And it's like this whole department inside of Cal State Fullerton that is designed for people who've done time, for formerly incarcerated guys. Shout out to Mir and JC who are running that program out there. So I was able to get out early out of prison, and I had a robust parole plan. I was going to go to Cal State Fullerton. I had 18 months left of the GI Bill. I was going to ask for me to get my VA rating reinstated. So I was super prepared. On October 15th of 2018, I had beaten the freaking system, man. I beaten the court. I got my habeas corpus granted. I'm going out of fucking prison. And I see my family. I'm walking out of prison, right? I could see my kids. I could see my wife. I won. I overcame not only myself, but I overcame the oppression. I overcame the systemic inequities because, yes, I committed crime, and yes, I did things that were wrong, and I'm forever apologetic to the communities that I hurt. But at the same time, scars from my service to this country were contributing factors. And I got tackled, man, to the ground by the investigative services unit and told that my fucking paperwork was bullshit. And I got dragged back into prison, dude.
What the fuck? What were you thinking then?
I was like,
as soon as I was like, what the fuck?
I was like, I did everything right. I did this associate's degree in lightning time. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I'm not even supposed to be in these rehabilitation classes because I'm not a lifer, man. All I do is just sit here and wait for that date to come and I'll go home. But I did all the work, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess the cops told me this bullshit story that my paperwork was flawed, that my case was thrown out. But what these motherfuckers did, excuse me for cursing, is they made me wait the appeal period.
How long was that?
60 days. But I didn't know that they made me wait the appeal period. I was fighting. I was writing everybody that I could write. My wife was talking to every attorney, and we're trying to figure out while I was still in prison And eventually, like through all this advocacy, and through like just turning every stone and getting support, we discovered that is they were waiting that 60 days for that appeal period. But then they pulled a fast one. They said, yeah, you won the habeas corpus. We're going to throw out your distribution case, but we're going to give you an offense for possession. We're going to retry you administratively for possession. Luckily, I don't know how it happened. Um, the way it works is that since I was charged with that distribution in Jamestown, which is in fire camp, but I was in Folsom, it took them more than 30 days to get the paperwork to retry me in Folsom. So by the time the paperwork got to Folsom, 30 days had lapsed, which means that any administrative hearing that you have in California Department of Corrections, um, that after 30 days, they can't give you any punishment that relinquishes time. They
How'd you
can't.
find that out? You knew that before going?
No, the
Something you
lieutenant
learned or what?
was pissed. I went to the lieutenant's office for this hearing, and he's like, "You're one lucky SOB." He's like, "Because if it was up to me, I'd give you that year back. But guess what? You're gonna go home. I don't know where you're gonna go home, but we can't take away your time. And just so you know, we're forcibly making you wait the appeal period." And luckily, they recalculated my time, and I only had 3 days left in prison, dude.
But you literally were getting ready to walk out. You saw your family. You get tackled and go back in for 3 more days. All that shit.
4 more months.
Oh, you had to go back for 4 months initially.
Yeah.
That's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah, so I had to literally, I was advocating for myself, and then finally when I advocated for myself and I did everything that I was supposed to do, they tried to pull that last little string of like, you know what, we're going to retry you. We're going to give you some time. You're still going to be here. But then they screwed up, right? They screwed up and they couldn't give me that additional year. So they recalculated my time, fighting for this 4 months. They finally, I think it was probably less than 4 months, because I got out, what was it? October, November. It was 3 months actually, not 4 months. It was 3 months. I got out I got out January 14th of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, man, you must have been pissed, dude.
Oh, dude, I was fucking devastated. Because I knew I was a screw up, but and I know I gave you a really quick brief insight into my life, but this was years of recovery, right? We're talking about getting to Folsom around 2016, 2017, and I got released in 2019. So you can imagine all the work I did on myself for 2 years of day in and day out grinding to improve myself as a person, to be the best that I can be, to be the best husband, to be the best citizen. And I got out in October. I got out in January, and I stopped by at a tattoo shop. I got these tattoos on my wrist because that's where handcuffs go. That's the day I went in. That's the day I got out. I vowed to never go back in, and I vowed to give back to my community. And I'm glad that there is a super happy ending to the story that I'm still working on, and it's not finished yet. But I deserved prison. I deserve to be put on timeout from society because what I did was wrong, and it saved my life. It saved my marriage, and it really put me on this trajectory that I could have never imagined.
And it's all full circle now because what'd you say you about to go do as a keynote speaker where they said they go talk to you at?
So, before we get there, I never thought this idea would be possible. I'm a federal employee. With the Department of Veterans Affairs. Also, I work for the County of Los Angeles. I work in systems where my existence shouldn't exist because of my incarceration record. A couple of weeks ago, this chapter got closed, dude. And I'm still working really hard at it. But the city that arrested me originally, that gave me that expedited disposition processing, they fucking asked me to be their keynote speaker for Veterans Day across the street from that stupid Applebee's where I got originally in the run, dude. We don't cross those cross streets as a family because we don't go to Applebee's. And I used to walk through the city in shame. and I get to take my kids, man. I get to take my wife, and I get to be somebody where I'm proud of the person that I am today. I'm not perfect. I could still be a better father. I could still be a better husband. I'm not going to tell you that my reentry experience has been all colorful and rainbows, because you can see me on paper, I look very successful, but I still struggle with mental health. I'm still not the best husband that I can be. I still have PTSD. I still have addictive tendencies. Those never go away. But now, guess what? I have a full supportive team that I can reach out to when those dark days come.
No, dude, absolutely, man. I appreciate you sharing that and being open, because, damn, that's probably one of the craziest stories I've heard so far, man, out of the people, not to compare and contrast, but just how vulnerable and how much resiliency you had to bounce back from all that and not give up on yourself and not give up on
Yeah.
your family and the people that were there for you. And so you said it best. You said that you didn't realize how bad you were hurting your family around you. And I feel like a lot of people don't think about that until it's
Yeah.
too late. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to take your life, you don't know who you're hurting your family, or like to do the things you're doing, but you're so caught up in the fight or flight or whatever you want to call it, the behaviors or whatever. But what were your thoughts when they called you to do that speech, man? What were you?
Oh man.
How did they even get a hold of you? I mean, you plugged into the community of doing realistically, 2-part question. That's the first part, and then the second part would be, like, how did you start networking to get yourself into the VA? And, like, did you think it was possible? Because, like you said, you said it best yourself, but just curious for your thoughts on those two things.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you. So when I got out of prison, I immediately went to Cal State Fullerton to get a bachelor's degree in psychology, because once again, the GI Bill was going to be to support my family, right? I was ignorant in thinking that I had no opportunities when I would come out of prison. But I was wrong. When I went to Project Rebound, I was shown these individuals who'd done decades in prison and were executive directors, had PhDs, were in master's programs, were in bachelor's programs, in all these fields, and they showed me that real change was possible, and that we were not going to be anchored down by our incarceration. So I owe a lot of the success to Project Rebound, to Dr. Heiner, to Marilyn Ralston, to, although he'll be surprised I say this, but to Robert Ortiz, Irene Sotelo. All these people gave me proof that I had a chance, right? And they gave me the confidence, because I was able to get my service connection and the GI Bill. I'm 100% now, luckily. I was able to have the income that gave me the confidence to go apply for jobs I should have probably never applied for. And I stumbled upon being a case manager for the Office of Diversion and Reentry, which is basically a program here in Los Angeles that if somebody has a mental illness, they go through this program, they're given the adequate psychological services they need, they're giving the wraparound housing and employment services, and we restore that human being to wholeness to make sure that he doesn't reincarcerate or recommit crimes to hurt his society, and he fixes himself as a person. So that exposed me to the beauty of social work. The social worker that came and saved my life in prison also exposed me to the beauty of social work, and I vowed to be the best damn social worker I can be. And I didn't think I could get into grad school, bro. Like, I remember we're walking, there's this trail behind the John Irwin House, which is a reentry home for college students here in Fullerton, California. Talking to one of my buddies named Daniel. He's like, hey, man, I'm applying to grad school. And I was like, yeah, screw that, bro. I got a job at this case manager. I'm 100%. I love my life. And he's like, nah, man, you said you're going to be a social worker. I was like, well, I kind of am. He's like, you ain't a social worker till you got that master's degree. And exposure to being a case manager, and I had to really develop resources, and people got to hear my story. The judge who ran this program got to hear my story, and I slowly started building this network of people who saw me as, a good case manager. And my buddy motivated me, on that trail to apply to grad school. And then my boss, Melissa Mara McGraw, who was a licensed clinical social worker, she's like, if you're going to apply to grad school, go big or go home, bro. I applied to UCLA and a couple other schools, but UCLA was a big one because that was my dream school. And I got in, bro.
Damn, too easy.
I got in. Not only did I get in, I got a full ride. And that exposed me to more people and how I started developing these community networks. I actually ended up saying no to UCLA because it was too far from my house. Okay. And I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach, which is also one of the best social work schools here. But that the reason why I'm telling you is that because going to Cal State Long Beach was the best decision I could have made in my life, and it's led me down this trajectory that is absolutely unimaginable. Because I had experience as a case manager. I saw on Instagram that there was an ad for work study being a digital marketer for a little program called the Veterans Peer Access Network. I joke saying little, who was started by a wonderful individual who is currently my field instructor, Jim Zenner. I started as a I ended up being their digital marketer there, and I saw that there was this amazing work being done in the veterans world. And I ended up transitioning. I've only been doing this work for a year in the veterans world. It's kind of shocking, right? Uh, I,
Yeah.
I worked as a case manager for years. That's what I've done most of my work: social work, case management, reentry. That's the world that I come from. But this digital marketing little role as a work study was working for the Veterans Peer Access Network, which is a supportive network that's veterans by veterans. It's
Right.
basically the largest peer program in the country, and it's all these broken veterans who got their shit together. A lot of them were in MSW programs like me, and my work ethic just started getting me into these environments. When you work for VPAN, especially doing the social media stuff, I'm at all the events. I'm at all the resource fairs, and I'm learning everything about the veterans world. And I started meeting social workers from the VA. I started meeting peer specialists from the VA, and I got the courage to apply and got hired by the VA. And I actually the way VPAN did is they would set me up as a peer specialist at my local VFW, and I became good friends with Dr. Rob Cancio, who was the assistant. Well, I think he's the commander now, but he was the commander of the VFW, and that's how this thing started with the city of Norwalk. Last year, they asked me, "Hey, do you know anybody who could be a good keynote speaker for the city of Norwalk?" And I was like, "Yeah, Dr. Cancio, Navy veteran, dude has a doctorate, super involved in the community." And little did I know, this was last Veterans Day last year. This year, they were looking for another keynote speaker. And he's like, "You should have picked Manny last year, but I hope you give him a shot this year." They didn't know.
Damn.
They didn't know I got arrested by the city of like the guy who asked me. He didn't know my story. He just like knew that I was, a veteran and that I might have had a good story. But once he realized I shared the same, I had lunch with him. He realized the story that I brought, he's like, "Man, you need to speak for us." And I was like, "Nah, bro, I can't speak in front of people. Like, this shit's fucking terrifying. The only reason I'm doing so good is because I'm reading shit and I'm in a room, and I'm talking to you."
Yeah.
But he's like, "No, you need to tell your story. Like, what you've been through, you can give hope to people."
There you go.
And man,
Exactly.
it that
Need that.
I felt this weight lifted off my shoulders because I've been trying so hard and working so hard to prove to everybody that I'm enough. And I finally feel like I'm enough. That's always been my condition. I've never felt like I was enough because my dad never made me feel like I was enough. And I thought that the Navy was going to make me enough. I thought that getting into grad school was going to make me feel enough. And I've always felt inadequate when I realized that I am good enough. And I've slowly been processing that in the last few years, especially shout out to Jillian Palomino, my amazing therapist, who's helped me see myself and really not only her, but my wife. My wife sees
Absolutely.
me, my wife sees me as enough. But it's important. The message I want to convey is that sometimes we can't do it ourselves.
Yeah,
Sometimes we
absolutely.
are our own worst enemies. I'm a Hispanic male. We don't talk about our feelings, dude. And when I went into the military, that was ingrained. Mission first, bro. Who cares about your feelings? Like, do the mission, finish the job, do what you need to do for your country, and that's it. Like, emotions are irrelevant. But sometimes that's a disservice because there's these hidden scars that us as veterans get that don't go away. And we need to have those supportive systems there to be able to address those. And I'm glad now that I'm in school to be a clinician. I'm actually very happy to share with you that I've been tasked by the director here in LA County in a very limited capacity to start changing the narrative for formerly incarcerated veterans here in Los Angeles County. I'm at the table, bro. I'm in the rooms where decisions are being made that are going to impact the way people who are incarcerated here in LA and who are veterans and how they're treated. So we have to like be our own advocate, and we have to tell these stories, because too many of our brothers are consumed by those scars.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, dude.
A few weeks ago in one of my buildings, unfortunately, one of our veterans committed suicide. And we have to do better. We have to overcome the systemic issues with our reentry mechanisms, not only from incarceration, but from the military. And I say this of my own free will, and I don't want to get in trouble by anybody, but the VA needs to do a better job. Nobody told me about the VA in 2011. I didn't know about it. But
yeah,
if you know how to utilize the VA, it does work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not supposed to know how to use the VA. The VA is supposed to outreach to me and show me how to use their services. I shouldn't have to jump through a million hoops to be able to get the services that I need. I shouldn't have to go through years of incarceration to be exposed to a social worker that cares and says, hey, this is how you can get supportive services. No, they should start, and there is change happening and there is good things happening, but your preparation for your discharge from the military should start the first day you start in boot camp.
Yeah, dude, you got to have it. Yeah, you're absolutely right, dude. You got to have that exit strategy going as soon as you get into something, even for business, even for that kind. You're absolutely right, dude. I mean, but it's up to us, but it's kind of crazy because I guess the more you go through shit in life, you just feel like it's really up to you to do it. Yeah. It's really up to you to do it, and whatever you believe in, but it's crazy. You never gave up on yourself, and why you're at those tables is because you're proving that people can get out no matter what the circumstance is, and you overcame it. It's easy to give up. It's easy to feel pity for yourself and stuff like that, but like you did it, man. So that's why I want you there.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that I didn't realize the background here, but it's interesting, right? I used to get these certificates of disciplinary consequences when I was in prison called Article 115s, right? Saying, hey, you did. And now, like behind me, that's a certificate from the Council of Los Angeles recognizing some of the work that I've done. Like if you look around my office, this is the new office, by the way, but I never thought that I would be hanging like certificates from the mayor of Los Angeles, from Congress, recognizing some of this work. But I don't do it for certificates, for accolades. I do it because I don't want another veteran to go through what I went through.
Nah, and absolutely, dude. That's why I wanted to do this podcast to share the stuff that I wish I would have known before I got out, and your shit hits the fan, and you're trying to figure out how to get your first 10% with no income, with no. Yeah, man, you're right. Like they need to have like a sergeant's time, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But everyone needs to be informed because this message wasn't getting pushed out when we got in. And you're right about the VA. There are good people in it. There is broken parts to it. Like the whole world's got a broken part to it, essentially. But it's up to us to just keep sharing the stories, to keep putting our information out there. That way, they say, "Oh shit, we could be doing all this while we're in the military. We got this, and the fourth, and like you said, have a plan, dude. You go from getting told what to do every single day, and you just make it happen, show it how to do it, and you charge with a lot. And then if you get hit in the mouth when you get out, you don't really have a plan. Even if you have a good plan A, what happened if plan A fails? What about mine did? I ended up having my girlfriend pregnant. I couldn't work in Alaska no more and be in Florida next to my family. So it's like you got to leave something that was working, and then you're thinking on your feet with 0% disability, working for $12 or $13 an hour, living with your family, thinking, what the fuck am I doing wrong? I know I'm worth more than that. And it's easy to spiral out of control on alcohol or drugs. So it's like, you're not the only one that did that. Like I went down the same road, you know what I mean? And then you start trying to self-medicate and you try to do this and you try to do that, and shit can get ugly real quick. You know what I mean? For anybody, dude. For anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm that prime example that, I hold myself accountable, but even sometimes when you do go look for help, it doesn't work out. So always remember, like you said, and you said it really well, is like have a plan A, have a plan B, have a plan C, have a plan D. And always one thing that we're taught in the military is we always plan with contingencies, right? We always have
Absolutely.
an exit strategy. And one thing is, yes, the VA is there. Yes, the service is there. But the person that can really make a difference is yourself. And is
Yeah.
that find that motivation to look for those resources, because for me, like now, like no, luckily there were some programs that helped me with school and help me with school and help me with my service connection. But we live in a world now where information is at the tip of your fingertips. And this is
That's
a
true.
plugin. This is a plugin for Reddit. If you want to know anything about benefits, Reddit has one of the largest databases for learning how to do your service connection. Not only do they have a database, it's a chat forum. You can literally go in there and type a question, and you have all these salty, pissed off veterans who've been going through the VA, but they've been successful at educating you how to do it.
You're right.
And
Even the Facebook groups, we just ask a question, dude.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, and you don't ever have to pay for somebody to do your claim. There's good VSOs out there, and there's a lot of information on YouTube. Combat Craig is another resource.
Yes,
And you
sir.
can do this on your own, but don't ever let anybody exploit you and charge you for what you've earned for free.
It's kind of crazy that veterans are capitalizing on other veterans on
No,
that sense. There's a ton of them doing it. I mean, just be real with it. There's a ton of people, but that is messed up. What would you say for like the medical nexus though? Like the VA. Okay, for example, like you get a sleep study when you're out of the military. The VA is not going to give you a medical nexus saying that came from your pre-existing conditions that are already service connected, because that'd be like them writing like a blank check. But I guess like would you recommend someone paying for a medical nexus if they had to in that sense?
no,
Or
not
like
necessarily. What I always talk about, and my buddy taught me this. It's called like the triangle of service connection, right? You have to have three things to make this triangle, right? One of them is that nexus, right?
okay,
The other one is the service. Did you do a qualifiable service in time, right? So that's those two. Hold on, it's slipping my mind. So it's the military service, the diagnosis, and the nexus. All right. The nexus connects that specific diagnosis to the service. Now you don't need to go get an additional thing. You need to build evidence. So let's look at that specific one, sleep apnea. You're not going. You're 9 out of 10 times if you do a singular sleep apnea rating, you're going to get denied because there really isn't any connection between sleep apnea and military service. However,
right.
I'm sorry, got emotional earlier and I got a stuffy nose.
Are you good?
Y'all didn't see that. Make sure you delete those.
No, wait. You good? You good?
But what you have to do is you have to find a primary service connection like PTSD, and
Right.
then add a secondary. So a
Yeah,
lot
exactly.
of times, for example, PTSD is your primary service connection because you have PTSD. Maybe you're eating a lot, right? And you're gaining some weight, and that weight is causing you to have sleep disturbances, which is leading to sleep apnea, right? That
Yeah.
sleep apnea was indirectly caused by the excessive eating that was used to cope for the PTSD.
Right. Yeah,
So
I'm tracking with you on that. You got to get it secondary into a pre-existing condition. So you could almost write the same nexus and have your primary care doctor sign it.
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times is remember like there's two like thoughts on how this works is for me I've had better experience with building the evidence and submitting the claim rather than submitting the claim and then building the evidence.
Yeah, most definitely. They would see that something's up. If you have an intent to file and then you get all this new evidence in the same 12 months, it'd be different than going over a couple years and then submitting once it got worse or whatever.
Yeah. So it's tough because most people say like, hey, get your claim and then we'll get all your evidence. But I think it's always better to make sure that you establish a pattern of medical care. We have to make sure that we're honest, man. You can't just say,
sure.
Like your specific injury has to be valid. Like for example, I got tuberculosis during the military deployment. It's documented. My lungs are messed up. That's a connection. I'm not going to say, hey, I broke my foot while I was off duty playing soccer and wrestling with my buddies. Although
Yeah.
you were in the military, and I know this is controversial, but it's like you have to make sure that, yeah, something might have happened, but how was it connected to your specific role? And some people will say, well, you're on duty 24 hours a day. But you have to make sure that who was the causative factor in that injury, and how is it connected to that service connection. That's the biggest thing. What I always recommend is, if you think you have a valid issue that can be service connected, just go look at the Veteran Board of Appeals and go look at similar cases and learn from that language.
Okay.
Right? Because if I'm stealing the language from the Veteran Boards of Appeals and they deny my case on an almost identical situation, when you go to the appeal process, they can't really take it back when you're using their own language. It's like, well, I really didn't say that. I'm like, wait, in this specific, so-and-so versus United States that was issued on December so-and-so, it states that this person has PTSD because of A, B, and C. Mine, I had PTSD because A, B, C, and D. They're both similar. Why are you saying in this case it's okay, but in my case it's not okay? So you use that precedent. This is where that paralegal comes into, right?
Yeah, no, I'm tracking with you. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, but that's good though, man. I mean, you just gotta know what's in the writing, right? Like you gotta know the law. You gotta know the CFR 38. You gotta, like, for what you're going for. No one's telling you. Don't get caught up in the lie. That shit won't ever work out in your favor, anyways. But like for the stuff that you did get injured or hurt while in, get it taken care of, man. You know what I mean? Like, don't wait till it's too late.
And now we live in a time and day where I'm not a fan of ChatGPT, but one thing that I tell guys, dude, you're not a lawyer. I don't expect you to understand the 38 CFR. But if you go look at, let's say we look at the 38 CFR and you find the description of what falls under a service connection for PTSD, and you look at all this legal jargon, copy and paste that into ChatGPT and say, break this down like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go. Nothing wrong with that.
And then you can understand it and read it. You don't gotta write your claim like a lawyer. You just gotta make sure that what you're saying is valid and it makes sense. Like, obviously, don't talk about like unicorns and rainbows. That's illogical. But say, hey, I was deployed to Iraq in 2008. I was blown up and I had I have a headache after that. They'll understand that. You don't have to say that, I was in Iraq in 2008. I suffered an IED explosive incident where it resulted in medically no, you're not a fucking doctor. You don't get that. Use simple language because the Raiders understand that. And not only that, you have a CNP exam. So you can go talk to a human being. And I tell this to veterans all the time. You're not going to describe how you're feeling that day. You're going to describe your worst day with the condition.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because today, both of us suffer from PTSD, right?
Yeah.
Today I might be having a great conversation with you, but after I get off this phone call, my body might be like, fuck, I reopened those triggers, and I might be under my desk crying.
Yeah.
But you saw me as a happy guy talking about the story, but you don't see the impact and the collaterals after it.
And if you won't, go ahead. I was gonna say, if you don't tell me, then all I'm gonna do is put all the good stuff that I saw from you in the one time I ever get to meet you, and then you're gonna send that file off to someone that never met you, and they're gonna give you that rating.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So and always go to your county. They all have VA accredited VSOs. Just remember one thing is that always people will say like, oh, the VSO wasn't the best or wasn't that. A lot of VSOs are really good, but just understand that because they're overwhelmed and there's a lot of veterans that have a lot of need.
Yeah.
So just be patient. I know it's hard, but especially right now with the PACT Act, that we're flooded with hundreds of thousands of requests. We ask for patience. Now, you deserve what you earned, but just be a little bit realistic. Like, I might have a stack of 80 claims, and I can't give you that quick, rapid drive-through experience. It's a disservice to you. So allow the VSOs to do their job and to find the information and to write the best case for you. Because while you're waiting, you might be able to get stronger evidence to support your service connection. But if you do things quickly, you want things immediately, it's gonna be a detriment to you.
No, you're absolutely right, dude. What are you working on now, minus all the keynote speaking and everything that you got going on? What's your major goal that you want to accomplish?
Yeah. So one thing that I've discovered is that my major goal is to be a researcher. I really didn't want to go do a PhD. I don't like statistics, but I realized that a lot of the research that exists to support us is missing that lived experience component. It's missing when certain research is proposed. Nobody thinks about the person on the other end. Well, sometimes I'm sure they do. They think about it a lot, but they don't think about it from a perspective of how that person has experienced their life. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, I got you.
And I'm discovering that a lot right now in the veterans justice work that I'm doing, that there's these amazing theoretical frameworks that are overcomplicating a very simple problem, which
Yeah, you're
is
right.
I don't need 7,000 pages on how I can get you out of prison. I just need to know how you ended up in prison, what can we do to address the traumas that led you to prison, and what supportive services we can give you to help you stabilize in order for you to live a productive life post-incarceration. Now, that's a lot of words for a very complex problem, but I think that if you ask people that are on the receiving end of these theoretical frameworks, you'll get a very different picture. And I
Yeah.
think that I can do that. That's my goal. To be honest, I'm a workaholic, and my goal is to not be a workaholic.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You can get consumed quick, and you got your family and your kids and stuff like that. But nah, man, I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story, being open. Even opening up the dark days and hopefully giving light to someone that listened in. Because just knowing that you did it, knowing that you or me, we're no different than anybody else. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. We all have the same opportunity to strive for greatness, but it's up to us and our mindset to go after that and just harness in on the good and keep going. So I look forward to staying connected with you and learn talking about some stuff and how we can help veterans together. And maybe I can give you some resources that might be able to help you spread your reach and your network as well. But I wanted to ask if you had anything else that maybe we didn't touch on, or anything that you want to close on, and then we can go ahead and call it a wraps.
No, yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. Well,
Sure.
one thing I want to add is that if we're frustrated as veterans with the system, let's be the change in that system.
Absolutely. Hell yeah.
Let's unify. The beauty of this nation is we have the ability to change the people that are in power. If we don't like what we're seeing, us veterans, we're a big bunch of people. We're a big number. We can dictate the direction. So let's work together. Let's not be our own worst enemy and get focused on the negativity of bashing the VA or bashing the systems. Let's be that change for the system. That's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. They could be negative and harness in on that all day and divide us, but like what you said is true. We need to come together. Like there's millions and millions of veterans, and like if we were in the military and we were trying to take care of each other for the most part, there's no difference when we get out. You know what I mean? We need each other, more than ever if we need a helping hand. So no, I mean, I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to having you back sometime and see what the future holds with you. And I can't wait to hear what you got to say about your speaking engagements. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys gain some value, like if you got anyone that wants to come on here and share their story, let me know. Leave a comment on any of these platforms, and we appreciate y'all listening in. And until next time, I hope y'all have a great one and be great. Take care.